This kid, I encouraged him because I thought he was just sharp. And I said, I'm challenging you to put together a business plan and see if you can make this even bigger next year. So it didn't happen the next year, but the year after, he showed up with a trailer and had 8 aerators on it and 8 buddies from university. And he came back specifically to talk to me. And he went and dropped each of those guys off in a neighborhood, paying them $25 an hour, while he's making $125 an hour on each of those guys working. And if anyone's interested in really the nitty gritty of the numbers, I'm a numbers guy. I love numbers. I broke it down in a table in the book to really give an idea of why his side hustle became something so important to him and how he made much more in a short period of time, a 2-month period, than most people make in a year or even 2 years.
Hey, Nelson Camp, welcome to the show today. How are you doing, my friend?
Russell, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on your show today. I'm honored that you invited me.
Oh, Nelson, you just stole the words out of my mouth. I was about to just say the exact same things. Thank you for the time. I know you're a busy guy, and I know you're going away in the next little while to some big masterminds, and you're always out there coaching people and helping people, and you're a mover and a shaker in the real estate world. And I'll be honest, Nelson, you and I, up until just recently, probably within the last 6 months, I haven't had a chance to really get to know you. And I'll tell you, the more I learn about you and the more I hear you speak, the deeper the ocean gets. And I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
So am I. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share with you today. I've always wanted to take an opportunity to inspire and share, and know that you've got a great group of listeners on your show, and hopefully they can take some great value away and a few nuggets from what they hear today. Nice. So we get to hang out.
Right on. Well, so first of all, Nelson, some of your people or some of my listeners and watchers on my channel might not be 100% familiar with you, who you are, where you're from, and all that kind of wonderful stuff. One of the things and I know you're a veteran on podcasts and a veteran on videos and stuff like that. And one of the things I always ask when people tell kind of a backstory about themselves and how they got into real estate, is there a story that haven't shared before, or a unique story, one that you haven't done on many of the podcasts? Is there a unique story of your background that led you into this game of real estate investing?
It's kind of a weird situation how it happened. I was born in Churchill, Manitoba. And that's, for those of you that have never been there or don't know about Churchill, it's a great place for polar bears, very cold place, and just a wonderful, beautiful part of Canada. And then I spent all my life, or most of my life, in the prairies. And I always say I got into real estate by accident. It wasn't intentional. And that's what kind of made it really different for me. My wife and I had gotten married, and she moved in with me after we got married. I owned my own home at the time. And, we went through this process of her moving in, and she moved in and she took my socks and my sock drawer and moved them all over to the side and then put her socks on her side. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't know this was part of the plan here, that I'm losing my sock drawer. And then next thing to go was my clothing out of the closet. And she put all her clothes in the closet. Mine ended up in a box. So we quickly realized that we wanted to find our home. And so I'm driving down the street one day and I see a house for sale in the old Comfrey. So I say, okay, Comfrey. I stop, I knock on the door, and the gentleman answers the door. He's like, what do you want? And I'm like, oh, I see your home's for sale. Do you mind if I take a look? And so he invites me to take a look. I go through his home. Oh, looks okay. He invites me to come downstairs. I go downstairs. I see his friends down there. And he's like, yeah, it's kind of my buddy's area. And there's no less than 50 or 60 beer bottles down there that are empty. And he's playing video games. And he's like, well, yeah, he lives down here. I'm like, your buddy lives in your house? He's like, yeah, this is his area. So he had his own little kitchenette and bathroom and bedroom. I thought, oh, what a neat idea. Have your buddy live in the basement. And then he says to me, would you like to see the upstairs? I'm like, oh, I never even realized we missed the upstairs. So he's like, well, put your shoes on. We'll go take a look upstairs. And I'm like, putting my shoes on to go upstairs? I had no idea where this was going at all. So we go out the house, up to the side door, and we go take a look upstairs. And he's got a couple of sisters living up there. And he's like, well, yeah, they pay me rent. They live upstairs and pay rent. And my buddy pays in rent and lives in the basement. So unintentionally, I put myself into a house hack situation where my wife and I moved into the main floor. We did some renovations upstairs and downstairs, made the home beautiful, and realized we were living for free. And that was my first real estate experience in investing, is that we realized we were living not only for free, but with a profit in that first home that we bought together. And then from there, it sort of became a hobby, quickly overtook my income from my job, and eventually became something more professional and more intentional.
Wow. Cool. Woo-wee. When was that first property, that unintentional house hack?
That would have been in 2008. We would have bought that first property.
Okay, so you're 12 plus years into the game here, give or take, and we're recording this in 2022. So hopefully my math was correct. Now I understand
it could be 14, but it's somewhere around a dozen. So.
See, and I was about to just make a point about, you were a former school teacher. Is that not correct, Nelson?
That's right. Yes, before going, I guess, full-time or part-time into real estate, yep. I was a teacher and enjoyed my career very much for 20 years in public education. Yeah,
so I got a failing grade on my first math exercise, didn't I, right? So I have to, make sure I have that's about as good as the jokes will get around here, by the way.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay, so
it was just by accident. Yep. And then, through grace and blood, sweat, and tears and all the way along, learning new things, became to be something that became much more than just by accident.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I have an interesting story about a sock drawer as well with my wife and I as well. So you have a sock drawer story. Now, I know when I was, Crane and I were starting to get really serious. My lovely wife, one year for Christmas, she, underneath the tree, she wrapped it all up and it was a present and all this kind of stuff. And inside of it was, she gave me the bottom drawer of the armoire that I could put my socks and underwear in when I was coming over to visit. And I'm going, holy moly, she gave me a drawer. So I knew it was serious at that time.
Getting serious.
Getting really, really serious. Now, I'm pretty sure Corrine doesn't listen to this. She'd probably kill me if she... But it was really fun. It was a fun Christmas present, and we knew it was getting serious that time. I was like the perennial bachelor. I make the joke that I had the Peter Pan syndrome, that I never wanted to grow up. And then all of a sudden, once I met my princess, I decided that I was about time to grow up, right? So
changes everything.
Yep. Okay, so that was 14 years ago of my math. And so if we fast forward to today, Nelson, what are you investing in? Where are you investing in? What does your portfolio look like today?
Sure. So what we focused on primarily is small multifamily, but we have some medium-sized buildings as well. But small multifamily has been the main focus of portfolio growth. One unique way of approaching the real estate that we did from the beginning is in some situations we did a famous BRRRR maneuver and pulling out the equity. But what I've really enjoyed doing is having the flexibility of, rather than BRRRRing a property, just going for the full HELOC on the entire amount each time. And going forward, I feel it gives a lot more control to the investor over cash flow management, because at that point you can choose, do you really want the money or not? And you can have access to the money without taking it all at the same time. It allows to maintain a strong equity position, but at the same time gives you the flexibility of having access to the cash whenever you need it without having to pay for it. And that's been really a signature move that has allowed an enormous amount of flexibility along the way, and consistent access to cheap money all the time. Okay. And it's just been something that from the beginning we did, and all the way through as we go through the portfolio. We know investors always need access to capital to be able to be, have easy liquid, and to be able to be flexible and nimble in making creative opportunities happen. And that's definitely been something that's helped us. Most recently, we bought an entire condo building, which was something new. We negotiated with every one of the condo owners and managed to tie up the entire building. Now, the great part about this is in the area where I live in Winnipeg, this condo building, we were able to remove all condo fees by controlling it. And in doing so, the building that was not very lucrative at the beginning becomes much more so lucrative by eliminating all of the condo fees. and also applying to have the entire building put on one roll number, but still having individual condominiums, which reduces the property taxation by almost 40%.
Holy moly.
So we've looked at some different creative opportunities to create a great deal in a situation where someone would look at something and kind of pass on it or not see the value in how that type of opportunity. And I mean, Russell, you know as well as I do, when you have strata title building like that down the road, liquidity becomes much easier. Capital gains mitigation becomes much easier rather than one chunk. You have these little slices and full control over the entire condo corp.
Wow. Ooh, hang on a second, brother. Hang on. You're bringing some heat there already. There's an awful lot I have to unpack there already. And sorry, when fire comes, bombs always follow after that. So, okay, I hope you don't mind me. So I had this thing thinking in my head. I had this other question, next question, but that's what I love about these conversations is as soon as you said something and I'm sitting there going, oh man, my audience, we're going to have to unpack a few things here. Sure. So I hope you don't mind me jumping in here for a second.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to come back to two things, Nelson. Number one is I want to come back to the strategy that you dropped there. Just, oh, by the way, we just put HELOCs on everything. I want to talk about that. We're going to talk a little bit about your purchase strategy. Then we're also going to talk a little bit about the condominiumizing, buying an entire condo property, bringing it back and, buying out all the unit owners. We're going to talk more about that. But I do want to complete the question, your portfolio right now, if you don't mind in just ballpark terms, how many transactions have you done over the past 14 years? And if you don't mind me asking, what are you kind of holding in properties right now?
Sure. So from a transaction perspective, I'd really have to count, to be honest with you. I don't think I've ever even counted, Russell, to see how many we're at. But our portfolio holdings now are just shy of 100 units personally owned. And then we have another 100 units, just shy of 100 units that we're looking at in partnership. So our goal is always to grow independently, have that strong core of personally owned properties, giving full control and strong cash flow. And then after that, the plan was always to continue in partnerships thereafter in joint ventures to allow for more exponential growth.
Wow. So 100 personally owned, 100 partner owned, give or take.
That's right.
And guys, there will be one day in this game of real estate investing, you trust me on this and you trust Nelson as well, that you will not be able to remember all the transactions. And somebody say, how many transactions, how many properties you've done? Well, I'm not 100% sure anymore. It's just so many. I don't know if it's old age or if it's just that when there's so many of them, you can't remember them all, right?
Maybe that's it. You know what? At the end of the day, I like to look at the growth and the net worth side of the wealth rather than the amount of transactions that did take place. And that's always been the game, is to create wealth and to help those around, family, friends, and create wealth with meaning.
Yep, perfect. So ballpark, what in asset valuation do you estimate your portfolio is at the moment?
It would probably pretty close to about 17 million.
Okay. Fantastic. Now, you mentioned, are all of these in the Winnipeg area, or are you invest elsewhere, or where do you primarily invest?
So all of our personal holdings are within Winnipeg or a region of 2.5 hours from that center. So that personal value, I guess the valuation for the personal portfolio is just north of 10 million. And then with the additional properties, that'd probably be closer to about 19 million. And that's where we're going outside of our main region, accessing the ability of others to control the property and more so bringing funds to be able to support that acquisition. But we're certainly looking actively right now in other opportunities. I think with the way the world has changed in the last couple of years, there's going to be an enormous amount of opportunity presenting itself. And we're trying to be poised in a way that we're ready for that.
Right. So primarily within a couple hours within the Winnipeg area as well.
That's right.
Yeah. I spent about 4 years in Winnipeg, 1 6-month period. Right. Oh, hang on a sec here. Oh, or maybe it's more about. I have lots of stories I could share about Winnipeg. Wonderful city, really. It's a small town, but it's actually quite a large center at the same time. And so I do have a question for you. I haven't had a conversation or anybody on my podcast that is from investing in Manitoba or in the Winnipeg area. If I was to sit here and let's say we're just sitting over a cup of coffee and you were to give me the nickel tour about what's happening in the Winnipeg and area, what's going on in the real estate market there?
Well, Winnipeg has historically been an area where it's just stable. We have such a diversified economy here between healthcare, education, private sector, manufacturing. We have science and development, research and development. So because of our diversity here, I remember even back in the financial crisis, people looked around and they're like, what happened here? There was really no downturn in Winnipeg. And it's just basically a slow and steady process. It's a continuous graph of just growing upwards. Many would say it's boring, but Russell, boring is predictable and boring is a great way to create wealth over long term. Winnipeg is also located in an area where we are still in an area where there's lots of opportunity for growth in the market, which is something that's really to the advantage of our area. Not everywhere in major centers can you also have strong cash flow in acquisitions, where in Manitoba, not only in Winnipeg, but in Manitoba, there are many pockets and regions where solid cash flow is a possibility if that's the primary objective of portfolio growth. So I think there's lots of good things about Winnipeg and Manitoba. There's lots of pros and cons to every area. And, any wise investor wants to take a look at, does this meet what I'm looking for in terms of an investment region? And it's something that allows us to grow at a much faster rate because of the cost of getting into the market here is much lower than other regions. Yeah. So slow and steady upward growth. It didn't have the big doubling of values. It's not flattening. It's steady Eddie, right? Steady Eddie. It really is. And yes, wonderful. We haven't seen that growth as Montreal and Toronto. There hasn't been 30% growth and year over year for us. But it's been a consistent, depending on the region, 5 to 10%, which is still exceptionally strong growth. Yep. But I don't think we're going to see a downturn from that like other areas may. Yeah, I had a conversation with an investor the other day, and they're saying, well, is that market gonna, I invest in Alberta and Edmonton, and Edmonton's, I call it the steady Eddie market as well. They say, well, is it gonna drop like, what's happening out in Eastern Canada or in Vancouver? And I go, well, to be honest, it never really it never really went up, doubled value. Since 2020, I think the number was like 17 or 18% growth over the last 2 years. So at best, it might be flat for a year at best. Meaning it's not going to decline significantly. And I would hazard a guess Winnipeg would be the same thing. I'm going to share a story with you, Winnipeg. So when I got transferred to Winnipeg, I was with Kraft Foods. I'll keep this one short. I will. But it's a funny story. I was there, and I was transferred there, and before my possessions arrived, it was south. It would have been South Winnipeg on Pembina Highway down there. And I don't know, it's probably not there anymore, but I think there was a pub called the Sir Winston Churchill or something at that time. So I was there. It was in April. Hockey playoffs were on. Nothing of my possessions had arrived. I didn't even have a TV yet. And I go, well, I want to go watch some hockey. So I went over to the pub over there I got to walk in there and, get a bite to eat and watch the hockey game. So I'm walking in and I go, geez, there's awful lot of women in this bar. I go, geez, this could be a very interesting neighborhood if there's lots of women around this area. So I'm sitting there and I go in there, turn my back to thing and watching the hockey game. And then all of a sudden the lights go down and the big DJ voice, ladies, for your first dancer of the evening. It was ladies' night, and the male strippers were coming out. And I'm sitting there going, oh dear. I go, do I leave or what? So I sat there and I go, okay, well, if I'm here. So it was a very interesting first night in Winnipeg for me. Well, hopefully you still got to watch the game. I mean, that's the most important at this point.
Well, during a break in the action, pardon the pun, I then left. Not that there's anything wrong with that or anything. It's just not my cup of tea.
Well, next time you come to Winnipeg, I'll be very happy to take you and tour around South Pembina.
Yep.
Unfortunately, that particular location isn't there anymore, but I'm sure we'll find another pub where we can enjoy together.
Okay, good. Woo. All right, so we are going to pivot into your new book here very shortly. But before we do get into that, I do want to, I opened the door and you mentioned about the topic about that you put HELOCs on your properties after you've kind of repositioned it. So talk to me a little bit, and it could be in really general terms, about your acquisition strategies, how you buy it. Do you then reposition? Then at the end, you put a HELOC on it. So maybe just share with the listeners a little bit about your acquisition strategies, maybe single family, and then we'll get into the multifamily condo project that you talked about as well.
Sure, Russell. So to be perfectly honest with you, I don't own any single family properties at all. All are small multifamily to medium-sized multifamily, along with a mobile home park.
My mistake. What?
That's okay.
But so what do you consider small multifamily?
Small multifamily, at least in the region we are, is 3 units.
Okay.
Is kind of a magic number for us here in Manitoba because we have certain rental regulations that apply to buildings greater than 3 units. So those are very sought after buildings that are right in that pocket of 3 units. So small multifamily.
So somebody might call it a triplex, fourplex, stuff like that. So, okay, awesome. So we're speaking the same language still. So
sure. So you asked for an example. I can give you an example. We did a 10-unit building a few years ago, and it was funny. I'd negotiated that one for about 4 years until we were actually able to tie it up when the vendor came back to me. And at that point, the price had gone down. So we were, the patience paid off in that situation. But what we did is we got that building, did a full rehabilitation on the entire building. Small, like micro suites, university students, bachelors, small 1-bedrooms. And we were able to tie that one up for $485,000. So we got a really good price on that one, $48,500 per unit. Did the rehab for it. It was about $180,000 that we spent on the property. And then we appraised it obviously on the other side, and we came back at $1.1 million. So in doing so, we're able to put a HELOC on the difference. And so I think they gave us up to an $800,000 maximum value on that building, 800 and change somewhere in there. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. But that gave us access to a good amount of capital to either draw back all of our initial investment, reposition it, keep it low for stronger cash flow, take it out for other acquisitions. So I really like that flexibility and that ability to not pay for the money if you don't need it. On a traditional refinance, you do get all the money back, obviously, on a refinance, but you're paying for it, right? And once it's paid down, it's kind of gone.
Yeah. Wow.
This is perpetual access to liquid capital. And that's really what motivates me in being able to use that methodology rather than the traditional BRRRR methodology.
Okay. So I'm as we have already established, I'm slow on math. So I'm trying to keep up, and thank you for sharing that. So in this example, you bought it for $485,000. You put about $185,000 into it, right?
Yes.
$185,000. So you're into it for $670,000.
That's what I got.
Okay. Now, when you first acquired it, how was it purchased? Was it purchased with a mortgage? Was it purchased with investor capital? Was it purchased with your own personal money? How did you first acquire that property?
So that one, the bank liked it. We already had a pretty good track record with the bank. One of the things the bank didn't like is that there was a lot of vacancy in the building. And that, for me, presented opportunity. I created a great pitch to the bank that we already had a relationship with. They saw a track record of other projects that we'd done previously. And so they were ready to support us in the project. So they financed 75% of the project, along with 75% of the renovations off the top. So out of pocket, really, which was just access out of another credit line, was minimal investment for our initial work on the building. So it worked out really nice. We do finance it up front on the renovation. And then upon submitting the documentation to the bank, they they issue the 75% of the value right away.
Okay.
So that in itself is a great way to allow us to both purchase it with a minimal amount of and a maximum amount of leverage with a minimal amount of actual liquid being put into the deal.
Okay, so you acquired it on essentially 75% loan to value plus also 75% of the construction costs at the same time. So let's call it 515 and change, or 513 and change that you got a mortgage on it. And then how long did it take to kind of reposition all the units?
We did the full reno in about 6 to 8 weeks.
6 to 8 weeks. Wow. 10 units.
10 units, but like I said, they were micro suites, right? Many of them are studios, the size of probably your master bedroom. And, students love that kind of space. That 350, 400 square foot space is great for students. They've got their own bathroom, their own kitchen, their own space. And it allows for affordable housing. We invest in neighborhoods that are very close to both universities and hospitals. And we tend to find great tenants by focusing on those regions.
Okay. Wow. So I'm trying to seriously keep up because your brain is firing at a like lightning speed, and I'm just trying to keep up. Okay, so 685 into it. You said you got a valuation after it was said done. Was it 1.1 million? Was that correct?
1.1 million. I'm just going to do the math here along with you of what was then released.
And then you got 75%.
75% of that brings us to the 825.
Oh, 820
for the full value of the HELOC. So the additional, the traditional part at the beginning remains a mortgage, and then the additional amount is released as a HELOC.
Okay, got it. So you would have had like the 513 you got would have just stayed as a mortgage, and then all the additional capital was a HELOC that you have access to.
Correct.
Okay, so in essence, in this scenario, there's like $300,000 of available equity that you can borrow against.
That's right.
Hang on, that delivers, right?
So that way we can use that money to reposition it at any given time. We can use it on a partnership with someone else who may need some help in a short-term situation to avoid that erosion of equity that's not being used, right? The more and more as we see inflation grow, we have opportunity for flexibility. But again, if we want to leave the value there with the smaller mortgage payment and the higher cash flow, if that happens to be what our motivation is during a period of time, during a year, it allows for a significant amount more planning on the taxation side as well.
Yeah. Wow. Brilliant. Okay. So in ballpark numbers, that 10 unit property, what kind of cash flow does something like that generate in your portfolio in the Winnipeg area?
Sure. In our last fiscal year, it was about $2,600 a month cash flow.
So $260 per unit. Wow, that's fantastic.
Right. And that was with a higher amount being pulled out. So I don't know what it would have been exactly if we didn't have any of the equity removed at that time. But at the end of last year, that's what the numbers were we were looking at the end of last fiscal year.
Took some capital out on the line of credit to redeploy into another asset, probably.
That's right.
Wow. You're a sharp guy there, Nelson. Right? You
got to understand your numbers in real estate, be able to move quickly. And that's something that's really helped us. But I mean, this one, Russell, wasn't quick. It was a 4-year deal, relationships and continuing to work with the vendors until the timing was right. Yep.
Not just a pretty face. You got a little bit of chops behind you as well, right? And I would imagine that's kind of what you would consider kind of a bread and butter deal for you, whether it's a 3-plex, 4-plex, 10, 12, 18. That's kind of, if you see something pop up like that, Nelson's writing an offer potentially.
That's right. I actually wrote an offer on that one without even seeing it when I heard they were ready once again for an offer because they turned down two or three previous offers. Yep. So at that point, I'm like, I don't need to see the building again. I know what kind of condition it was in. I'm assuming it's not in any better condition than when I saw it. Let's just write the offer right now. And
the lender you used on that, was that kind of a commercial lender, a local bank, Big Five? What kind of lender was that?
So that one was a credit union, a local credit union here, and definitely on the commercial side. What are
the credit unions in the Winnipeg area, the big ones?
One of the biggest ones would be Steinbach Credit Union. But there's also Access Credit Union, which is growing as well. They just did some great acquisitions. So we try to work with a whole bunch of different lenders, as many real estate investors do, just to kind of spread the portfolio around and have more relationships. Yep. And that's really worked for us.
Yeah, and it's there's crazy amount of capital in that whole Steinbach area around that whole thing. Mm-hmm. That whole corridor from Brandon to Steinbach with Winnipeg and kind of in the middle is crazy amount of wealth going through some of those.
There certainly is a lot of wealth. They call it the Manitoba Bible Belt, that whole area along those small towns. And just really strong agriculture, and there's an enormous amount of capital that's there. That's for sure.
And if you needed to get a new vehicle, Steinbach is the place where you go, isn't it?
You remember that? Yeah? That's what they say.
Okay, so we're going to touch quickly on that condo unit you talked, because you opened the door, and I'm fascinated by deals. I love deals. I love just dissecting deals. And sure. I love dissecting that. And we are going to get to your book. Just to preface it, what's the title of your latest book, Nelson, and when is it coming out if it's not out already?
So that one is just launching as we're recording that. I'm not sure when your listeners are going to get a chance to listen to it, but it's called Lifestyle by Design, and it's achieving true wealth. The whole book concept is about whole wealth and achieving that type through financial independence. So it's called Lifestyle by Design. There it is. Yep. And just a great opportunity that we had to kind of put something together. We'll get a chance to talk about it a little bit later, Russell. Really excited about this book. We're
definitely going to unpack this here in a second, but I'll tell you, though, I'm sitting here and I was going through it. Thank you very much for sending me an advance copy to go through it. And I was quite blown away by some of the heavy hitters that you had on the forwards and the testimonials and stuff like that too. It's like you're a very well connected guy there, my friend.
I have a good friend who once said in life, if you want to fly with the eagles, make sure you don't spend your time scratching with the turkeys. So that's what I like to do, is find those great influencers and good-hearted people. I believe life is so short, and there's so many awesome people in the world to be able to connect with. Yep. And you're an excellent example of that, Russell.
Well, I was sleeping at the switch. I should have been giving you a little rim shot there of the joke that came through, right? It's a lot better than the joke I tried to attempt to tell already. So, okay. So one more deal, and then we will get into the book, because it is quite fascinating. Sure. I love the concept, and I want to hear some of the backstory about the writing of it, why you wrote it, and we're going to pick about 3 to 5 of the key lessons in it. We're going to unpack it. Okay. So the condo unit that you just let me reframe that. The condo building that you just bought, how many units was it? It was all strata titled. Tell a little bit of the story about how you got each of the unit owners to agree to sell it to you. And then maybe we'll just walk through that story a little bit.
Sure. So that one is, it's a beautiful heritage style building in Winnipeg, beautiful brick face building. And we tried for probably 3 years to acquire that one, working with the different vendors. And that's a little bit of a challenge, because you're not negotiating with just one individual. You're negotiating with 7 different owners. They were all owned by different owners. So again, it's relationships and timing. And the timing wasn't necessarily right in that period, but through patience and keeping good relationships, we were able to eventually come to terms with all of the vendors. Some of them not quite as reasonable as others, but I like to see things as a whole, and I like the deal as a whole. So we were able to eventually come to terms with that one. And that one was a great building. The units are all quite large and set up in a unique fashion. So I believe the smallest one is about 900 square feet, and that's a 1-bedroom. And the largest one goes all the way up to 1,400 square feet, and that's a 4-bedroom. So some of them are quite large. The bathrooms are neat the way they're set up. It's almost like a hotel style, where you have the water closet where the toilet's located, and then you have the shower separate in another area. So it's a great setup for, a couple of nurses living together that may be working at the hospital, university students that want a little bit more privacy, separate areas. And it's just a gorgeous building, west facing with big sunrooms. So people do like some of their urban gardening in there within their space, because it's a very, very urban area. So there isn't a lot of land use there. And that one we acquired. We were able to get most of the building vacant on possession. We did a renovation to it and realized, as I was doing my due diligence, that with the cost of the condo fees, it wasn't a very lucrative deal. But in removing those condo fees and in removing or reducing the taxation on the building, it does make it a lucrative deal. And obviously a great opportunity for my children down the road or my children's children to liquidate that one by mitigating capital gains risks.
Yeah. And I would imagine you said in Winnipeg, there's favorable property taxes versus having it as one property as opposed to 7 units, 7 condo strata titled units.
That's correct. So the best part, Russell, is we were able to maintain the strata title status of the building. However, we rolled everything into one taxation roll.
Okay,
it's under one roll number now, and that's the element that really reduces the taxation.
Right. Okay. What did you pay? Was it a set price per unit? Like ballpark number? What did you buy each of the units for?
So all the units we purchased between 80,000 and 95,000.
80, not 800, right? 80.
Right. That's right. Sorry, did I say 800?
No. I'm so used to where I live out this way. It's like 800,000. Yeah, that sounds about right. So 80 to 95,000.
So that low price point of entry, right, is something that's really attractive in Manitoba, is being able to still acquire for that price. So we put them all together. I think the final purchase price was about 610,000. Again, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it was approximately 610,000.
Okay.
And that one we did, I think it was close to $250,000, probably 240,000 in renovations. So that was a beautiful building. We're still in the process of finalizing all the financing, putting the financing in place for the other side. But we intend to do the same methodology as the first one. This one as well was just reappraised at the value of $1.1 million as well.
Wow. Even so
this one will be a great building. And again, we're focusing and trying to work with the bank on the HELOC strategy to be able to either pull the money out and use it or leave that equity parked there for when we do want to draw on it.
Okay. So including renovation in ballpark numbers, you're into it for $850 and change for 7 units. Now, guys, that's $850 for 7 units. That's not $850 for one townhome. Right? If you're out in Toronto or Vancouver saying, yeah, $800,000 for a townhome, yeah, that's pretty good, right? No, this is 7 units. Okay. Now, those 7 units, when fully rented and fully optimized rent, what kind of gross rentals are you getting for that?
Great question. So our smallest unit, the 1 bedroom, is renting for $1,049, and the client pays all the utilities except water. The most expensive unit, the 4 bedroom, is $1,499. And once again, the tenants pay for their own heat, they pay for their own electricity, and the condo or the building owner, which is us, provides the water to the clients.
Right. So if we were just to saw something off at, say, $1,200, kind of a happy medium in between, you're getting $8,400, $8,500 as a gross rental on that.
Yeah, I think we're close to just over 9,000 when we factor in the parking and the coin-op laundry projections.
$9,000 on a property you're into for $850, and it's now appraised at 1.1. So there's $250,000 of available credit there.
That's right.
Whew, Nelson, man, everybody's listening to this going, what's Nelson's email address so I can take a look more at some opportunities out that way. So this might be a good time, Nelson, if you don't mind. Can you drop a good place? Where's the best place for somebody to get a hold of you if they're interested in taking a look at Winnipeg?
If anybody would like to reach out, they can find me on my website, nelsoncamp.ca, or I'm pretty active on social media platforms, mostly on Instagram and Facebook. And if you're in Winnipeg, let me know. I'd love to get together and have a coffee. It's a great town, and I love meeting new people.
Nice. Well, there you go, my friend. So, all right. So I did promise we're going to get to your book, but honest to goodness, Nelson, I think I'm already sensing that there's going to be another conversation that we're going to be having here too. Because honestly, we could probably just talk deals until the cows came home. And I do want to correct one thing here very quickly, because I would imagine everybody from Manitoba is just really sitting there going, Russell, your geography is a little off. And you're talking about from Brandon over to Steinbach. I meant to say Portage La Prairie to Steinbach. That corridor, more than Brandon's quite a ways away from Winnipeg still, is it not?
Yeah, it's a great town too. Brandon's a great place to invest if anybody wants to invest there. Brandon, I think about 3 hours away.
Yeah, so it's not really that corridor. It's kind of the Portage to Steinbach is kind of that corridor I was referring to. All right, your book, my friend.
Yes.
Why did you write it? What was the premise behind it? And first of all, I love the premise, Lifestyle by Design. Is it a real estate book? Is it a life book? Is it all of the above? Is it none of the above? Why did you write this one, my friend?
Well, one of my previous books that I wrote called Money Tree, and that one is Money Tree, How Anyone Can Become a Millionaire Through Real Estate in 5 years. That one was really focused on the real estate aspect. Lifestyle by Design is more so, I wrote it from a place of, I started seeing throughout the world, quite honest with you, Russell, that a lot of people were getting tied up in this idea that wealth is really just related to finance. And although finance is something necessary, it's a tool in life that we use to do things that we enjoy. You know, if you want to go take your family to Mexico and enjoy a week off, that takes finance, right? And so I'm certainly, I do recognize that, and financial independence does create another level of that lifestyle. But the book is really came from a place where, I was a teacher for many years and I love teaching. And this is a way for me to reach more people, is by writing a book and sharing some of the stories within the book and strategies. So it's kind of written from both perspectives. There's some real stories of real people that have had success designing their lifestyle, but also from a perspective of what are some actual practical strategies that the reader can use. And I just wanted to get away from this idea that wealth is only finances and get back to what I call whole wealth. And, that's related to wealth when we talk about health. Right? Many people put aside their health sometimes for business and don't realize that you're pretty rich in life when you have good health, right? When you're able to do all the things you want to do. Happiness, there's many people that make $1 million a month that aren't happy, right? And there's so much value associated with happiness in life. Relationships, there's so much wealth associated with relationships in life. Time for me, which is personally the greatest resource, I believe, there's being able to get together and hang out today, spend time together, you and I, or having a lunch with a friend, or taking a day away from the office to go hang out with a spouse or children. That time and all of these things, bringing them together, bring to what I call what is real wealth in life, is a balance in all of these areas. So that's really what spurred me to write this book.
Yeah, so it really goes one step deeper to fulfillment, really fulfillment of life and purpose and things like that. And I think that's a very needed book that's a book that's out there. Like there's lots of, I call it there's an endless supply of how-tos. The endless supply of the how-to book, how to invest in rent to own, how to buy a multifamily, how to condo convert, how to get financing, lots of that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it really does come down to the why. Like, why are we doing this? And at the end of it, you can amass the giant portfolio and you look around and go, geez, that kind of sucked, right? If you don't have the fulfillment at the same time, it just, well, what's the point, right? So, awesome. So, now I have a couple chapters that I want to dive into here, if you don't mind. Or I'm going to ask a question here. And I know we never want to say which is our favorite chapter, right? But if you were to sit there and go, what is a chapter that has a deep meaning to you that you would like to share with everybody here today?
Well, can I answer with 2 chapters?
Look at you over-delivering. Yes, 100%.
I wrote the book in a way where I thought that there was value and, meat and potatoes and all of it. There is definitely the mindset portion that I feel is really important because everything starts with mindset. But one area of the book that I feel hopefully is a real take home for some individuals is recognizing the value of diversifying the streams of income in life and recognizing that there has to be a relatively fair combination of both passive and active for true financial independence and what I believe is a wealth fulfillment to be able to have all of these other things in life. There are many people in life that are very rich and they have no wealth. And I want to really make a distinction between those two. And I do in the book. And, through different stories, especially in the active income and the passive income sections, we look at real strategic methodology of, okay, everybody wants passive income, but how do I do that? What are some different ways to get passive income and to make income as passive as possible? And just for any listeners that are listening that aren't really familiar with that definition, active income would be something where you're trading your time for money. And passive income, as I define it, is when you have the money coming in while you sleep. You're really, whether you get up and you walk the dog or you get up and you go click away at the computer, it doesn't change anything. That same amount of, or relatively same amount of money is coming in one way or another. So there are some great examples of some stories in the active income portion. And I think a lot of people start with like a side hustle, Russell, when they have a dream in life and they want to, test the waters and do something a little bit different. And that active income tells some stories of some people who did it through something like crypto, through people that did it through, there was this one young kid, if I can tell one story of the kid, because I really like this kid.
Yep.
And he came to our house. Well, he didn't even come to our house. I went to him. I was in my house coat at home. I think it was a Saturday morning and I heard this engine outside. And so I'm looking out the window and there's a kid with his aerator. And I know where you live, the lawns are always beautiful, but where I live, we got to take really good care of our lawns. And an aerator simply just puts plugs of dirt out of the ground, allows for more water penetration and air penetration. And so I looked out the window, I'm like, I should get my lawn done. So I go outside, I'm chasing him in my house coat, waving money at him to come and do it for cash. And he's like, sure. So he does my lawn, takes him about a half an hour. And I'm like, how much you want? He's like, well, $60 is what I charge. So I give him the $60. I'm like, good for you. Took you a half hour. So how many lawns do you do an hour usually? And he's like, well, I do 2. And I'm like, so how much are you making an hour? Here I am doing a financial plan with him of his business. He's like, well, I make, I guess I make about $120 an hour. And I'm like, good for you. How many hours are you going to work today? He's like, well, I'm going to work till the sun goes down, 10 hours. This kid was a hustler. And I'm like, so let me get this straight. You're going to make $120 for 10 hours today. He's like, yeah. So he's taking home $1,200 in one day. He's going to come back and do it the next day. People are all outside in their house coats waving their money because they want to make sure their lawn looks good too. His marketing was basically the engine of his motor running. Anyhow, this kid, I encouraged him because I thought he was just sharp. And I said, I'm challenging you to put together a business plan and see if you can make this even bigger next year. So it didn't happen the next year, but the year after, he showed up with a trailer and had 8 aerators on it and 8 buddies from university. And he came back specifically to talk to me. And he went and dropped each of those guys off in a neighborhood, paying them $25 an hour while he's making $125 an hour on each of those guys working. And if anyone's interested in really the nitty gritty of the numbers, I'm a numbers guy. I love numbers. I broke it down in a table in the book to really give an idea of why his side hustle became something so important to him and how he made much more in a short period of time, a 2-month period, than most people make in a year or even 2 years, just because he was motivated to do it and try something a bit different. So that was a great success story in the active income that, will always stick with me because I have a fond place for that individual.
Wow. Woo-wee, hang on, my friend. Woo-wee, bringing the fire. And of course, bomb gets ignited after the fire comes here. All right, so now Nelson, I know, and I see this when I hear anybody who ever's talked about you, is you're held in very high regard. You're a wonderful coach, a wonderful teacher, a wonderful facilitator, a wonderful speaker, counselor, all the above. So with what you did with that young man who did that, so if somebody came to you and they're sitting here going, okay, I'm working for BC Hydro and I'm going to use BC. Oh, let's go. What is Manitoba's MTS? Let's go. Is the MTS still out there?
It's Bell MTS now, but yes.
Yeah, okay. Bell MTS, Manitoba Telecom System, I believe.
System.
Yes. Okay, so somebody's working as a laborer for MTS and they're wanting to, potentially make that pivot from active income into passive income. Do you have a process that you kind of walk people through of how you do that? Do you have, what's the secret sauce that you do? Now, I know it's a big question and a big onion, and we'd have to unpack it for a better part of years in many respects. But what would you talk to somebody? We're having coffee, and I just kind of told you I'm looking to get out of my 9 to 5 and get into an entrepreneurial venture. How do you kind of walk me through and start that process?
Great question. And as well, you know this, Russell, there's many different ways to be successful in real estate. And that's one of the most awesome parts about it. There's so many different ways to create wealth and income through real estate. And there's so many ways that you can do within real estate of creating wealth and income. So what I would probably say to that individual is I'd probably try to narrow down with them, what's your magic number? Right? What's your breakaway point? When you get to a place where you've got that critical mass, where you're able to say, well, if I leave right now from my job, my life won't change that much because I've got a similar amount of income coming in. So if someone were to say, just for example, let's say it was a young person, they didn't have any children, maybe no partner, and they have a lot of flexibility in life, their best option may be to start with either, I believe the two best ways to start in real estate, if you want to start fast and start strong, are either a live-in flip or a house hack. In my opinion, though, those are the absolute two best ways to be able. And now, one's more capital heavy, with you get the payoff on the other side, and the other one is more obviously heavy on the passive income and ease of lifestyle. But those, in my opinion, are the two easiest way, maybe not the two easiest, the two strongest ways to break into the real estate market. Right. The advantage, of course, of doing a live-in flip is you can live there for a period of time. You need to live somewhere, but not everybody can live through a renovation. And if you have the flexibility of being able to live through a renovation, maybe you're only using the bathroom sink while the kitchen's being done, you live there for a period of time and sell it. And if the intent is to enjoy it and live in it for a period of time, we have an opportunity of not paying capital gains on that if the intention is to live in it. Right? Yep. That has to be the true intention of the opportunity. The other side, the house hack, what my wife and I did when we started out, we were living without a cost of any mortgage, which is obviously in most cases, other than taxes, the biggest line item on anyone's budget is going to be their home expense. So I think those two ways, in my opinion, are the strongest ways to break into the market.
Yeah. And so step one, if I'm to bookend this for everybody, step one is you do kind of a why analysis, why you want to do it. And then more importantly, you do a numbers analysis on what is the magic number. And then you reverse engineer a plan in order how to get there. And
that's what I would do with someone probably if we were having coffee is figure it out. And if they say, well, let's just, you throw out a number there. They say, I need $3,000 a month to be able to just pay my required bills in life. Then they have an option. If they want to flip it, I would just tell them, hey, so you need to make $36,000 in 1 year on a flip, or on multiple flips is what you would need to generate, right? And then you can draw on that money little by little throughout the entire year, but you're trading that for 2,000 hours of your job.
Yep. Yeah. Now,
what if you had an extra 2,000 hours a year? What would you be able to do with that time?
Yeah. That's amazing once you kind of get that number and then you kind of break it down like you just did. Like, honestly, if a person needed 40 grand, two $20,000 flips, two $20,000 profit flips, one every 6 months, how many offers do you have to do? How many properties do you have to look at? How many people do you have to talk to about raising the capital? All that kind of stuff. And when you break it down into those pragmatic steps, it gets not as daunting. Like, everybody sits there and they look at the top of Mount Everest as opposed to what's the next step? What's base camp? What's the next step after that? Where's the next summit to get to? And then once you start getting up there, the summit gets very, very likely once you've accomplished each of those steps along the way. Okay.
And one of the greatest things, Russell, to your point, is that when you get that first deal done, there's momentum that's built,
yep.
right? Very few people do I know that have done a real estate deal and, wow, that was great, made a profit, or we have a wise investment, everything went really well. I don't hear people often say, you know what, I'm done with real estate. That was a great experience. I'm never buying another property.
Yep.
It tends to be something that repeats itself through that success,
yep.
right? It's I've heard people even refer to it almost as an addictive thing. They enjoyed it so much the first time, they want to once again have that successful business venture.
Yeah.
So I think those are the really important things. Figure out what is your minimum breakaway? Why are you choosing real estate? What is the long game? Where are you going to be in 10 years from now because you go into real estate? And if someone has a clear idea in their mind and they break down the steps, as you say, what's the most important next step to be able to get to my goal? It's going to happen.
Yep.
Right? It's going to happen.
Is that exercise in your book? Now, I apologize. I had not had enough time to go in depth into it. Is that kind of that exercise in your book to break that out?
I'm doing a giveaway with the launch of the book of some great documentation and tools that might help your listeners or the readers of the book, including a blueprint strategy that outlines what is the blueprint to success that you're looking for right now.
Okay.
So if anybody's looking for some of those takeaways, I'm offering all of these giveaways for free. If somebody buys the book, reach out to me on social media. I would be honored if you give me a 5-star review for the book on Amazon and send me a screenshot. And I want to make sure you get all of these giveaway tools that I have for you, because they're going to help you in this dream planning and preparation of whether it's related to real estate or it's related to some other type of dream in entrepreneurship and financial independence that you may have.
Brilliant. And then once you kind of get that mojo going and that entrepreneurial spirit, I'm going to share a quick story of a client of mine. So once he got his number and he was starting to work towards it, he eventually took a look at his business and goes, I have a goal of every dollar outgo I have of expenditure, I eventually want to have that into a vertically integrated business operation. Like, for example, he sat there and he goes, the end of the year is bookkeeping and taxes and all this kind of stuff. He goes, so he now has an accounting bookkeeping division that he now offers a service to other real estate investors. He was sitting there spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on contractors and renovators. Now he's the general for all these kind of things, and he now does other people's projects. The next thing he's looking at is going, okay, now property management. So he's slowly building out verticals of every dollar of expense is going to be a dollar of income coming in, and then he offers that as a service to other investors at the same time.
Brilliant.
So there's, like you said, there are a million ways to make $1 million in real estate today, right?
There really are.
All right. Now, we could go deep into many different topics. I love every one of the chapters, and I read a good portion of it. But my favorite, the one that I resonated with the most, was chapter 4, is the 5 F words. Can you describe on what those are? And that's the one that kind of just really landed really strongly for me right now. Now, can you describe what the F words are and what's the importance of this?
Sure. So it's actually 5 F words. Yep. And if you want to add a 6th one, I've got a 6th one to add as a bonus today that wasn't in the book. But these are areas of life that I've found personally, if you keep them in order, and the order is important. It allows for a good balance in life. It allows for a well-rounded individual to be able to grow in entrepreneurship and whole wealth as a person, and not just get focused on, any one thing that may happen to be that shiny object that I'm chasing right now. So the 5 F words kind of break down like this. The first one is faith. And when I say faith, this can be any type of background or spiritual belief that somebody has. And, someone might say, I don't need that. That's just fluff and I don't have time for that. My question to that individual would be, well, where do you go when you get to the end of what you can do about a situation, a problem that you have, an issue that you've done everything humanly possible that you can invest in resolving that situation? I akin it to my children. I raise them. I do the best of the job that I can, but then I got to send them out into the world. And that is outside of my scope of control at that point. And a spirituality is a place of peace, a place of where someone can go to be able to reground and to be able to believe in something that's greater than them, whatever that might happen to be. And so that can be through meditation, it can be through prayer, it can be through rituals, whatever that person's spiritual background or faith might be, is really where do you go when you're at the end of what a human can possibly do? And that place is a place where it allows for that rest, to be able to sleep at night knowing that even though I've done everything that I can, I know beyond that, good things happen in the universe and come to me. From everything around me. So faith, I find, is the number one. We focus on keeping a strong faith. Fitness is the second one. As we talk about health in the book, you have to take care of your body. You've only got one. And you only have to talk to anyone who's very ill to realize that without that fitness and taking care, you can't outsource your health, right?
You mean you
can't get someone to go to the gym for you.
I can't hire somebody to do my push-ups for me?
You can hire someone to help you make them better.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, you're going to have to be the one that really grinds them out, right? No one else is going to do your sit-ups for you. Nobody else is going to, get you up in the morning and take you to the gym or whatever it is. Your fitness is so important. And I think the more that we, grow as a human species, we recognize that whole health, mental health, everything is all related to fitness. They're all connected together. So fitness is really important because if you can't be your best physically, it's hard to give your best to everybody else around you, right? So the third one is family, right? And family doesn't even necessarily need to be blood. It can be perhaps a spouse or children or parents or siblings, but family is really who we make it in life. Who do you celebrate with? Who wants to give you that high five in life when you have a win? And they won't just say, someone's telling me a story and they're haughty about their success. Your real friends will want to high five you and give you a big hug and be happy with you when you succeed. And when you surround yourself with people that encourage you in your dreams, people that encourage you, who are you building your dreams for? All of those elements are really important in growing that family friendship around you. There's another F word. If you don't want to just say family, it can be friendship too. The next one is finance, because that's an important F in life. We need to get that in order. But you know what? Working on your partner is far cheaper than divorce. You know what I mean? Working with your partner, working on that family part comes first, and finance is after that. Right? You work on finance. Everybody's got to eat. I got 3 boys at home. I know how much they enjoy eating. So the finance part is important. And finally, fun. We've got a limited amount of days on this planet. None of us knows exactly how many days it is, but we live in such a beautiful place with so many amazing things that can be done and enjoyed, whether that's sitting outside in the cool of the day, reading a book, or it's enjoying a beach or a walk in a park, maybe in a forest hiking, hang gliding, scuba diving, whatever it is that you enjoy in life, making time for that fun to happen. And so these are the 5 F's. And the last one is freedom. That's the 6th bonus one. Enjoying the freedom that financial independence can bring in life kind of ties everything together. But keeping those 5 in balance is really important.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head, and you actually dropped a very interesting, not an interesting play on the words, is you're living an amazing effing life.
There's the 7th F word.
There you go. And we're not going to use that word, but you can actually, effing, right, is a wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what? Life is meant to be lived and enjoyed. You got one shot at this. There's no dress rehearsal. This is it. And each of us has the opportunity, regardless of what happened yesterday, 5 days ago, 10 years ago. Today is what we've been given. That's why it's a gift, and we call it the present. So we got to get out there and carpe diem, seize the day.
Well, and I'm definitely not going to drop a couple. Sorry. Awesome, my friend. Okay, so I'm sleeping at the switch here, brother. You're dropping the fire like crazy here, and obviously when fire happens, another bomb gets.
There we go.
Okay, I do want to open up a don't know if I'm opening up Pandora's box. I do want to open up a conversation here. And it's how, of the context you and I first kind of got introduced to each other is through a mastermind group that we both belong to of Christian entrepreneurs and Christian men. And we meet, at some odd, godly time of morning, especially for me out in the West Coast. It's 4 a.m. Here's the thing I'm going to say. One of your F's that you talk about is faith. And why do you think it's a difficult, or most people don't talk enough about their faith or a religion or their relationship with God or their God or whatever? Why do you think it's a taboo conversation for most people?
That's a great question, Russell. And I wouldn't want to speak for anyone else on why it's such a taboo subject, but I think a lot of people are in a position now in life where they want control. And they seek to be able to identify everything as classable. And there's just so many things that we can't classify as human beings that are too supernatural and incredible to have been happenstance. I remember one building I bought. I was still working as a guidance counselor, and I had a little bit of a rough morning hearing some tough stories that some kids were going through. And I like to get out at lunch, go for a walk, And so I was out in the day and I was just taking some deep breaths and enjoying the beautiful day. And for me, it was a time of meditation and prayer while I was walking. And I just think to myself, it's time for us to find another acquisition. And I was in prayer, and all of a sudden I stop and I see this for sale sign on the lawn. I kid you not. It was one of those black and white garage sale for sale signs and somebody had scribbled a phone number and put some plastic wrap around it to protect it from the rain and everything. And I'm like, no, this can't be coincidence. Coincidence doesn't work this way. And so I just pulled it right out of the ground. I looked at the house. I'm like, 2 hydrometers, 2 mailboxes. This is a duplex. Knocked on the door. I said, I'd like to buy your house. Haven't even seen it yet. And they're like, well, we want $250 for it. I'm like, would you take 200? They said, no. I said, what would you take? They said $225. I said, okay, let's write the offer right now. And that was it. Of course, I went through the house with them and wrote the offer in that moment. But it's through things like that in my life that I realized that is too unreal to be a coincidence. And that there's a greater power around me that is drawing good things to me as I open myself up to the world to bring good things to others. And so I can't, to answer your question, I don't know why it's a taboo subject for many people. It's maybe a control thing, but I'm willing to give up control in certain areas of my life to things, to know that there's great abundance available. And some people call it energy. Some people call it the universe. Some people call it God, creator. I know there's an immense amount of things going on that are beyond what we can understand. And that's hard, I think, to digest sometimes, being able to say, yeah, there's stuff going on that I'm not aware of. That can be intimidating, right? And that may be part of why people don't want to go into that area of life. But speaking from my perspective, there's just been too many things like that example, Russell, that have taken place that just make it undeniably to me that there are things that go beyond what I'm able to control. Well,
I guess you've just recontextualized a burning bush into a burning house for sale by owner sign, huh?
That one was like that. Where's the bum bum?
Yeah, sorry. Oh, hang on. I actually did tell a joke, didn't I? Sorry.
There it is. And that building was a great one. We ended up it was an empty basement, nothing being done with it. Side entrance, boom. We put in a third legal suite. It became a triplex and a great cash producer, $1,500 a month. So the abundance transferred from supernatural to tangible, and then got even more improved through what I was able to do and see in the final result. Yep. So again, it's just one example, one house. And yes, it does have a monetary value, but for me, it has more than just a monetary value. It has a very significant value because it was something that I believe was gifted upon me from abundance.
Yep, 100%. Now, and I know it may be one of those topics that not everybody wants to have a conversation about, but the more I dive into my spiritual side and spirituality side, the more I'm seeing that people do have a spiritual side that they're exploring. And I know for a fact you're always willing and would love to have conversations with people if they do want to have that conversation as a guide and somebody out there as well. And I know you've done lots of missionary work and you've done lots of work like that as well. Do you have a way for people if they would like to dive further into a conversation with you? Like, what would be some next steps that you would help if somebody was looking to expand on their spiritual and their faith side of things?
Sure. So, I mean, I'm by far not, a spiritual guide or I haven't got everything figured out in my life. I'm trying to do it every day, just like everybody is. But if someone did want to reach out to me, you're more than welcome to do so. I do try to get back to as many people as quickly as I can. We have such a short, limited amount of time on this earth that it's important to be able to reach out when you feel something. I always say people feel a calling. When they feel that there's something calling them, that tends to be a time when they're ready to maybe see what else is out there that I haven't figured out yet in terms of my spirituality. And, like I said, I'll never pretend that I've got everything figured out in life. I'm certainly not there. It's a journey, right? This is a marathon. We're all on it together, helping one another. And if I can plant a seed somewhere and help somebody out, I'm very happy to do so.
Well, I'll tell you, for somebody who does something every day, I think you're being really humble and modest about that. That somebody who practices his faith quite, pardon the pun, religiously, is you do have probably more depth and knowledge than you're leading on and sharing with people here as well. So could be another conversation for us to have. But I did want to open that door, like just open it for many people that are probably watching or listening. They might be just saying, yeah, we don't have enough of these conversations about our faith and our spiritual side of things, and I think we need to talk about it a little bit more. At least be open to talk about it, as opposed to just shut it down. I think most people think about, when they think about religion, is they think about when they were a kid going to church, or they think about the person on the corner of the thing with the sandwich boards and preaching the gospel and all that kind of stuff. It's so much more than just that. So anyways.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the package of the weirdness that kind of comes across, or that cliche idea. And that may be one of the things, as you say there, Russell, that kind of makes people shy away from talking about it. And if someone's not ready to talk about it, it's okay to ask questions too. Yep. Instead of talk about it, ask people questions and see what's right for you. And I know, Russell's you're an incredibly a man of high integrity. And, I enjoy spending time with you because you are a man of incredible, not only because, but in addition to that you are a man of high integrity. And, if there are people that want to ask questions, usually that calling in life comes because it's the right time. Timing is always so important for everybody. And asking questions is important too.
Yeah, and I just find it just fascinating. The more I learn and the more I hear about it and the more things I hear about it, it's another relationship with a higher power, with a higher being. And I think it's just fascinating. And I've been there in our mastermind group a couple times. We've gone quite deep into some things when they started talking about talking in tongues and stuff like that. I'm going, oh, Toto, we ain't in Kansas anymore.
New stuff, yeah.
But it's just it's fascinating is the best way I can describe it. And
it certainly is.
Yeah. All right. So Nelson, what I wanted to do from here is I wanted to, we're going to start wrapping up, but I do see this being another conversation. Would you be open for another conversation down the road, my friend?
Absolutely. I haven't even told you about the Coyote House yet. I'm looking forward to telling that story. So I hope we get another conversation.
Well, see, I know you're a professional speaker, because you just did a professional move is keep them wanting more, right? Keep them wanting more and dropping a bomb at the end that you have to get invited back again, right?
That's the idea.
All right. I have one final question I want to leave with you here shortly. But one more time, can you just drop the best place that people can get a hold of you if they want to have a conversation, and where can they pick up your book, and where can they get all those bonuses that you talked about?
Sure. So my website is nelsoncamp.ca. If you'd like to get my book, it's available on Amazon. I have several books on Amazon, but search Lifestyle by Design and Nelson Camp. You'll be able to find it on Amazon. I'd love it if anybody felt the value in the book, they'd be willing to give me a 5-star review on the book, because it helps me reach more people with the message in the book. That would be really appreciated. And in turn, it helps more people make a difference in their life and design the lifestyle that they want. If someone does want to get the bonuses, send me a screenshot of that through social media or through email at my website. And I will be happy to get you all of those documents, which include things from processing, the proper time management, the blueprint to success in life. We're talking about your budgeting your business. We talk about great tax saving tips. We talked earlier, Russell, about how you can flip houses, let's say 2 in a year and 40,000, but we didn't talk about tax implications and the best way to do that so that you can ensure that you're doing it in an efficient fashion. Wow. So there's lots of stuff to unpack in the book, lots of extra goodies that I want to make sure that I get in the hands of your listeners. And there's even a place on the website. And if you get in touch with me, I'm going to send you a link where you can take a picture and tell us your story about how you're designing, even if you haven't gotten there yet, but you're in the process of designing the lifestyle you want. I want to hear about it. I want to share your story, because your story is going to inspire other people. Yeah. So that's why we put that together, so that can be shared. Well,
I wish you all the best on your book of there. I think this is a powerful message that people need to really lean into. And before I do ask the last question, I do want to offer you something. I want to offer you I've just been, even though we haven't known each other for a long time, you've made, in a short period of time, I've made a very deep and profound impact on my life, on people's lives that are part of the same mastermind that we're part of. You literally just came in and it was just like, wow, who is this guy? He's just so deep and so amazing. It's just, you make an instant impact on people. And it just comes from your desire to be a servant leader, to give, to help, and inspire others. So I just want to acknowledge how you show up in this world. And you're doing an amazing job, really, of how you show up.
Thanks, Wes. I really appreciate you saying those things. And that's part of what I've always felt in my faith and my vision is impacting people, reaching more people, sharing the message and encouraging people in their success. So thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah. Now, it's for one of the last questions, and I promise this will be the last question, is you talk about helping others, inspiring others. And so let's just paint the picture. We've had a couple times where we talked about a cup of coffee over at Starbucks or maybe a pint of beer or something. Let's say you're having a conversation with somebody that's there and they're just feeling a little bit stuck, right? They just need some inspiration, or maybe just some help to take the next step forward. What would be some inspiring parting words you would leave with that person to help them take that next step?
Well, I think the most important thing to recognize in life is that the easiest way to get lost is to have no idea where you're going. So I would say, let's go back to the roadmap of where you want to be. I was an author in another book called From Broke to Success, how anyone can get from where they are to where they want to be in life and business. And it talks about that concept of, as well as figuring out, where are you right now and where do you want to go? And then, as you said a little bit earlier, let's articulate what are the next steps. And even if you don't see the steps in the next 2, 3, 5 days, for today, what is the next step, actionable step? And I'll give a concrete example. Several years ago, I just fell in love with Central American and South American culture, the Spanish language, the people. I spent some time in Mexico as a missionary at one point. And, I told myself, I said, I want to learn Spanish. And I know it can be done. Many people have done it. So I said, what's my plan? What's the most important next step? So I downloaded a language app, and then I started doing every single day a 15-minute to 1 hour lesson. And I created a habit out of it. So if you're stuck, that's where I was. I was stuck. I wanted to learn the language. I have now gone through 1,217 days straight without a break of doing a Spanish lesson. My friend, there is nothing in life that you can do for 1,217 days and not see some type of growth and improvement in it. Habits are so important. So I would work with that individual on what daily tasks they can do to get out of that rut. And they may not see it on day one. They may not see it on day two. But the promise I would want to make to that individual is a promise that if you keep consistently doing this, it will bear fruit eventually.
Wow. Woo-wee! Bringing the fire, my friend. So absolutely. And obviously we can't end without another bomb being dropped. Man, there's so much bombs going off around here and mic drop moments. You're a true gem, Nelson. True gem. And I know you have an audience and things like that. I honestly think you need a bigger audience, to be honest, because of the depth and the amount of materials and content and things that you can provide. I do want to have a conversation another time with you about how do you fit all this stuff in? Like, how do you, with all your properties and your portfolio and writing books and, helping and coaching people and all this kind of stuff, how do you just become the productivity master? I think that might be our next conversation. See, I'm now doing a professional tease moment here as well. So
I see that. That's great.
Well, I think we're going to leave it there. Thoroughly honored to get to know you, my friend. And I think this is just the beginning of a wonderful book launch that you're having with your book. This book will change some people's lives. And if you lean into it and do the work within it, I wish you nothing but all the success on bringing this book out into the marketplace and all the results that the people who read it will get from it.
Awesome. Thanks, Russell. Really appreciate you having me on the show.
All right, gang. Hope you have yourself a wonderful day.